The souls of the dead gathered in a beautiful meadow for a week to decompress from the traumatic experience of dying. Then they traveled on to the place of reincarnation. Socrates said, they came to a place where they could see from above a line of light, straight as a column, extending right through the whole heaven and through the earth, in color resembling the rainbow, only brighter and purer. This is an amazing description. What was this extraordinary column of rainbow light? It seemed to be something divine, holding the cosmos together. Socrates said, another day's journey brought him to the place, and there, in the midst of the light, they saw the ends of the chains of heaven let down from above, for this light is the belt of heaven, and holds together the circle of the universe, like the undergirders of a trireme. So, the souls arrived at the very part of the universe upon which everything depended, the foundation of all. Socrates said, from these ends is extended the spindle of necessity, on which all the revolutions turn. The shaft and hook of this spindle are made of steel, and the whirl, pattern of concentric circles, is made partly of steel and also partly of other materials. Now the whirl is in form like the whirl used on Earth, and the description of it implied that there is one large hollow whirl which is quite scooped out, and into this is fitted another lesser one, and another, and 4 others, making 8 in all, like vessels which fit into one another. The whirls show their edges on the upper side, and on their lower side altogether form one continuous whirl. This is pierced by the spindle, which is driven home through the center of the 8th. The first and outermost whirl has the rim broadest, and the 7 inner whirls are narrower, in the following proportions. The 6th is next to the 1st in size, the 4th next to the 6th, then comes the 8th, the 7th is 5th, the 5th is 6th, the 3rd is 7th, last and 8th comes the 2nd. This seems to be some attempt to describe the cosmos, which was imagined to be a set of concentric circles or spheres, involving the sun, planets, moon and the stars. Socrates said, the largest, of fixed stars, is spangled, and the 7th, or sun, is brightest. The 8th, or moon, colored by the reflected light of the 7th, the 2nd and 5th, Saturn and Mercury, are in color like one another, and yellower than the preceding. The 3rd, Venus, has the whitest light. The 4th, Mars, is reddish. The 6th, Jupiter, is in whiteness second. A near-death experience sometimes involves a panoramic view of the cosmos and the soul imagines it understands everything. Socrates said, now the whole spindle has the same motion, but, as the whole revolves in one direction, the 7 inner circles move slowly in the other, and of these the swiftest is the 8th. Next in swiftness are the 7th, 6th, and 5th, which move together. Third in swiftness appeared to move according to the law of this reversed motion. The 4th. The 3rd appeared 4th and the 2nd 5th. The spindle turns on the knees of necessity, and on the upper surface of each circle is a siren, who goes round with them, hymning a single tone or note. This is like the Pythagorean music of the spheres, delivered by sirens, the most hypnotic and divine singers of all, with their perfect, enchanting voices. Socrates said, the 8 together form one harmony, and round about, at equal intervals, there is another band, 3 in number, each sitting upon her throne. These are the Fates, daughters of necessity, who are clothed in white robes and have chaplets upon their heads, Lachesis, the allotter who measured the length of the thread, the drawer of lots, and Clotho, the spinner who wove the thread of life, the goddess of fate and regulator of life and aging, and Atropos, the inevitable who cut the thread with scissors, signaling death, she who cannot be turned, who accompany with their voices the harmony of the sirens. What an amazing musical cosmos! And the Fates sat at the heart of it, controlling the operations of the universe and everyone's astrological destiny within it. Socrates said, Lachesis singing of the past, Clotho of the present, Atropos of the future, Clotho from time to time assisting with a touch of her right hand the revolution of the outer circle of the whirl or spindle, and Atropos with her left hand touching and guiding the inner ones, and Lachesis laying hold of either in turn, first with one hand and then with the other. Do you feel you are in safe hands? Are you happy with your fate? Or do you want to carve out a new one? Socrates said, when and the spirits arrived, their duty was to go at once to Lachesis, but first of all there came a prophet who arranged them in order. Then he took from the knees of Lachesis lots and samples of lives, and having mounted a high pulpit, spoke as follows, hear the word of Lachesis, the daughter of necessity. Mortal souls, behold a new cycle of life and mortality. Your genius, Daimon, will not be allotted to you, but you choose your genius, and let him who draws the first lot have the first choice, and the life which he chooses shall be his destiny. Virtue is free, and as a man honors or dishonors her, he will have more or less of her. The responsibility is with the chooser. God is justified. You get to choose your demon, genius. Whom would you choose? Socrates said. When the interpreter had thus spoken, he scattered lots indifferently among them all, and each of them took up the lot which fell near him, all but himself. He was not allowed, and each as he took his lot perceived the number which he had obtained. Welcome to the lottery of life and death. How much control do you have over how you reincarnate, and what as? Socrates said. Then the interpreter placed on the ground before them the samples of lives, and there were many more lives than the souls present, and they were of all sorts. There were lives of every animal and of man in every condition. And there were tyrannies among them, some lasting out the tyrant's life, others which broke off in the middle and came to an end in poverty and exile and beggary. And there were lives of famous men, some who were famous for their form and beauty as well as for their strength and success in games, or, again, for their birth and the qualities of their ancestors, and some who were the reverse of famous for the opposite qualities. And of women likewise, there was not, however, any definite character there, because the soul, when choosing a new life, must of necessity become different. But there was every other quality, and they all mingled with one another, and also with elements of wealth and poverty, and disease and health, and there were mean states also. Socrates then makes some general statements about what choices about the next life a wise person should make. Socrates concluded by saying, a man must take with him into the world below an adamantine faith in truth and right, that thereto he may be undazzled by the desire of wealth or the other allurements of evil, lest, coming upon tyrannies and similar villainies, he do irremediable wrongs to others and suffer yet worse himself. But let him know how to choose the mean and avoid the extremes on either side, as far as possible, not only in this life but in all that which is to come. For this is the way of happiness. Socrates preached moderation and moderate choices as the way forward. Not sure about that. That's how to achieve mediocrity and banality. The messenger from the other world reported what the underworld prophet said. Even for the last comer, if he chooses wisely and will live diligently, there is appointed a happy and not undesirable existence. Let not him who chooses first be careless, and let not the last despair. Socrates said, and when he had spoken, he who had the first choice came forward and in a moment chose the greatest tyranny. His mind having been darkened by folly and sensuality, he had not thought out the whole matter before he chose, and did not at first sight perceive that he was fated, among other evils, to devour his own children. Donald Trump was first to choose. Or maybe Elon Musk. What would you choose? Socrates said, but when he had time to reflect, and saw what was in the lot, he began to beat his breast and lament over his choice, forgetting the proclamation of the prophet. For, instead of throwing the blame of his misfortune on himself, he accused chance and the gods, and everything rather than himself. A malignant narcissist. Those monsters always blame everyone else and never themselves. Socrates said, now he was one of those who came from heaven, and in a former life had dwelt in a well-ordered state, but his virtue was a matter of habit only, and he had no philosophy. The soul that made the awful choice to become a murderous tyrant had previously enjoyed a lovely time in heaven, thanks to having lived a good life in a good state. If you create a healthy state, you produce healthy people. A diseased state produces diseased people. Look at so many Americans today. Look at its leader, a man now in alliance with the Russian dictator Putin. Socrates said, and it was true of others who were similarly overtaken, that the greater number of them came from heaven and therefore they had never been schooled by trial, whereas the pilgrims who came from earth, having themselves suffered and seen others suffer, were not in a hurry to choose. And owing to this inexperience of theirs, and also because the lot was a chance, many of the souls exchanged a good destiny for an evil or an evil for a good. According to Socrates, those souls released from hell made much wiser choices than those who had returned to earth from heaven. Is that what you would expect? What was the Socratic formula for happiness? Socrates said, for if a man had always on his arrival in this world dedicated himself from the first to sound philosophy, and had been moderately fortunate in the number of the lot, he might, as the messenger reported, be happy here, and also his journey to another life and return to this, instead of being rough and underground, would be smooth and heavenly. Some people chose to be animals in their next life. Socrates said, most curious was the spectacle, sad and laughable and strange, for the choice of the souls was in most cases based on their experience of a previous life. There he saw the soul which had once been Orpheus choosing the life of a swan out of enmity to the race of women, hating to be born of a woman because they had been his murderers. He beheld also the soul of Thamyras choosing the life of a nightingale. Birds, on the other hand, like the swan and other musicians, wanting to be men. The soul which obtained the 20th lot chose the life of a lion, and this was the soul of Ajax the son of Telamon, who would not be a man, remembering the injustice which was done him the judgment about the arms. The next was Agamemnon, who took the life of an eagle, because, like Ajax, he hated human nature by reason of his sufferings. About the middle came the lot of Atalanta. She, seeing the great fame of an athlete, was unable to resist the temptation, and after her there followed the soul of Epeius the son of Panopeus, passing into the nature of a woman cunning in the arts, and far away among the last who chose, the soul of the jester the Cites was putting on the form of a monkey. There came also the soul of Odysseus having yet to make a choice, and his lot happened to be the last of them all. Poor Odysseus. Last in the lottery. Socrates said, now the recollection of former tolls had disenchanted him of ambition, and he went about for a considerable time in search of the life of a private man who had no cares. He had some difficulty in finding this, which was lying about and had been neglected by everybody else, and when he saw it, he said that he would have done had his lot been first instead of last, and that he was delighted to have it. How disappointing. The great Odysseus turned his back on exceptionalism to become a mediocrity. No one else wanted to be a banal human. Odysseus lapped it up. Socrates said, and not only did men pass into animals, but I must also mention that there were animals tame and wild who changed into one another and into corresponding human natures, the good into the gentle and the evil into the savage, in all sorts of combinations, the dogs and cats and hamsters very human-like. Are they precursors of humans, or do former humans choose to be pets in their next life? Socrates said, all the souls had now chosen their lives, and they went in the order of their choice to Lachesis, who sent with them the genius whom they had severally chosen, to be the guardian of their lives and the fulfiller of the choice. This genius led the souls first to Clotho, and drew them within the revolution of the spindle impelled by her hand, thus ratifying the destiny of each, and then, when they were fastened to this, carried them to Atropos, who spun the threads and made them irreversible, whence without turning round they passed beneath the throne of necessity. The fates were essential to this worldview. Wouldn't it be much better to dispense with them? What did the souls do next? Find out in part 3.